Okay, we have no resolutions coming out of executive session, and so it's now public participation. If there's anyone in the audience who would like to address the board at this time, please approach the podium, identify yourself, speak directly into the microphone so that our live stream can pick it up. And you're limited to 2 minutes. Our board clerk will let you know when you're approaching 2 minutes. Is there anyone who would like to address the board at this point? Well, then come to the podium now.
Good evening, my name is Elena Batt. My daughter Almahia goes to George Washington Elementary School. And as a parent, I just wanted to speak in support of the Montessori programming. It's my understanding that it's going to be, that a review is going to be conducted of the program. And it's just been a wonderful experience for us to be involved with that program. I think there's just such a dignity to that method of learning and a respect for how children learn. I think that there have been over 70 special permissions for other students who don't live in the district who want to go to that school. Really speaks to that it works and that it's people in the area know about it, and that support is really strong. We're really incredibly grateful to be involved, and really, as informed parents in the district want to know more about how the study is going to be conducted. Thank you very much.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the board at this time? Anybody else?
Sorry.
Please
Thank you.
approach the podium.
Hi. My name is Tim Bates. I'm Assistant Dean of Students at Bard. For what it's worth, I grew up in Kingston, but the wrong one, Massachusetts. But I live here now. And I'm a parent of two. One of whom is old enough to go to George Washington next year. And I'm disappointed that this is even under consideration, frankly. The idea of removing the Montessori program. Am I in the right place?
We are actually conducting a review, and we would be irresponsible if we didn't review the programs district-wide.
Sure.
Periodically.
Fair. I've been in education myself for 15 years, and I'm old enough where you can do the math. I've never had a job outside the field. And I can tell anyone who isn't in the field that when they say they're doing a study, that's when you all should get suspicious. Because it's not necessarily coming from a place of pedagogy, learning. Many of you have probably seen this, if you pay attention, in the last 20 years. Utopian concepts about racing to the top. And learning isn't about racing, and it isn't about tops. And I very much am worried that the idea of doing a study is simply to have a reason to remove it and to put in a program that is more measurable. We all know Montessori is not as measurable as, let's say, Open Court by Hugh Mifflin. 30 seconds? Sure. Thank you for hearing what I had to say.
No, we have 2 minutes, and our clerk is letting you know you're approaching the minute.
I have some questions then that I'd like you to answer to the public and to families like me who moved here on purpose for the program. One of the questions is the study public?
Can you forward the questions to the board clerk? And she'll make sure that we all get them.
Certainly.
And can I
Absolutely.
thank you for telling us all the things that we don't know, but we do evaluations of every one of our school buildings every single year, and every one of our programs. Actually, we're required to, as a focus district, across the whole district, we do reviews of our programs.
Right.
And so yes, and if you have questions, I went over this entire conversation with the principal, and I met with parents last week. The Montessori program has been in practice for 10 years. The board had asked the administration to look and see how did we do. So to say that the reason for this is to remove the program, I would say is not accurate. The reason is to see how we're doing and see if the things we need to do to enhance it, or the things that aren't working, and what can we do to make that happen.
Can I
So you know, to ask for information, your principal knows it, the principal at GW, I know it's a lot of conversation, but that's what we're doing. Yes, it will be public, will be presented to the board, and yes, we will use data to measure. We'll also use other methods of research and look at anecdotal things and what are the things that are going on in the district and the building. I mean, so I think you're asking for information is a good thing. And if you want to ask Ms. Val for information, you can, Ms. Hammond, she can give it to you. If you want to ask me, you can call or make an appointment, and I'll meet with you.
I'd like that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Forgive me for being suspicious. I've been an educator for 15 years. I've seen lots of programs that were great go because of politics. And that's not rocket science.
So most of us in this room are politicians. We're educators also.
Okay, I've yet to be convinced. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Okay, I understand we have anybody else like to urge?
Just very quickly, Herb Lamb, I'd like to thank you for your support of the band and the arts programs in this district. Invite each one of you to come to the fanfare, fall fanfare at Dietz Stadium on Sunday at 12:30, and you'll see quite a performance and an incredible job by about 6 educators from this district that are so dedicated to our children that you really should come and see what they're doing.
Mr. Mann? Is there anyone else who would like to address the board? Okay, seeing no one else, we'll turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First thing in the superintendent's report is, as many people may know and many people may not know, this is School Board Recognition Week. So I would like to read a proclamation. Whereas each year, Board Recognition Week is observed by more than 700 school boards and school districts throughout the Empire State, and whereas our state's public education system is designed to meet the educational needs of all children and to empower them to become competent, productive contributors to society and an ever-changing world, and whereas members of local school boards are dedicated to children, learning, and the community, devote many hours to service to elementary and secondary public education as they continually strive for improvement, excellence, and progress in education, recognizing that all children can be successful learners, especially when education is tailored to the individual needs of the child. And whereas local school board members are strong advocates for public education and are responsible for communicating the needs of the school district to the public, and the public's expectation to the district by working closely with the parents, educational professionals, and other community members to create the educational vision we all hold for today's students and those in the future. And whereas the members of the New York State local school boards respond to the educational needs of the communities they serve and help ensure the solid foundation of our school system. In doing so, these leaders help strengthen our state's educational system and improve future prospects for our children. And whereas during the October 23rd through 27th of 2017, special activities and programs will be held in communities across New York State in observation of School Board's Recognition Week, and it is fitting to join in acknowledging the commitment and contribution of members of the local school boards. I was going to read the last sentence now. Now, therefore, again, I'm reading a proclamation. I, Andrew M. Cuomo of the New York State and State of New York, do hereby proclaim October 23rd through 27th as School Board Recognition Week. I wanted to read that proclamation that was sent to us from our governor, and I wanted to just quickly, thank the board for your service to the school district and to our students. And I know, speaking for the administration, and I think speaking for our teachers and our faculty and staff, we do appreciate the work that you do. And I know you get paid very hefty salaries and benefits to do this work, and we really are so pleased that here in Kingston we have a board that is focused on students and our school district and what's best for our community. So I think I'm honored to work with you, and I think this is it's nice to have 1 week, but truthfully, I know that you all work every week on what's best for Kingston City Schools. So thank you. And I have certificates. Ribbon challenges. Okay. Next on, you also, in front of you, each of you also have a piece of the ribbon from the ribbon cutting from Kingston High School a couple of weeks ago. So this is a piece of that ribbon, and inside there's the picture of all of us, the board, at the ribbon cutting. So that's, we thank Kate Heidecker for putting that together for us. And now, we have our first of the year principal's report, and it is Miss Marie Anderson from Crosby Elementary School.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for letting me go first. I'm always all about children and students and what they're doing, but I chose to talk a little bit about what we as a school are doing to be in line with what the district is doing and meeting goals so that our students are improving in all areas. So our presentation tonight is about Crosby School, how we will educate and inspire our children, respect individuality, and create responsible citizens. That is our mission. These are some of our happy children on the opening days of school. This is not new, the tenets of the SEP plan, they're posted all over the walls, but it is important to note that we as schools are in line with what the district initiatives are in those areas. The red just indicates that we as Crosby School are not too worried about the district leadership, but we are concerned with our school leader practices, curriculum development, teacher practices, our social emotional developmental health of students, and of course our family and community engagement. So it is important to note that Crosby School is a focus school. This is our second year of focus. Our focus subgroup is students with disabilities, and it's always good to remember that our accountability status is based on data that's a year old. So it is the 15-16 data. And I'm going to share a little bit of that with you for a couple reasons. One is I don't really want to bog you down with data, but it's important to see that the school as a whole is really pretty much in line with both the district and the state. And our subgroup is the area that is where our focus lies. So our profile for this year, we are at 325 students, 255 are general education, special ed is 70, that is 22%, and I'm pleased to say that that is down from about 26% 4 or 5 years ago. Unfortunately, our current 4th grade is our largest special ed population with a population of 28, so our accountability issues are probably going to exist for a little while longer. Our profile in terms of ethnicity, we are still largely white. Our Hispanic population is growing. Keep in mind, Hispanic is not in a group of its own. Students are either Hispanic white or Hispanic non-white. And although we don't have an ENL population with instruction for students that have English as their second language, we do have parents that do not speak English. So that is a challenge, particularly for students that are challenged in school. Proficient in ELA, this is data from the past 3 years. Crosby is in pink, our district is in green, or that blue-green, and then the state is that lime green color. And I hope everyone can see that Crosby, the pink, is pretty much in line with where we need to be with the state. We have a drop-off in ELA from last year, and I think, although I'm not able to say matter-of-factly, but I think it's about a lot of our students who refused to test last year were some of our highest level students. Just to give you an idea of how that profile looks in terms of our subgroups, I think you can see that male-female is comparable, whites and non-whites are not too much of an issue, even our economically disadvantaged, but our students with disabilities are definitely shy of our other groups, our other subgroups. We can look at the same data in math, and I'm actually very pleased with our math results, and I do think that that is a lot about the curriculum that was initiated. 4 years, the Common Core that we took a lot of hits for, but our students now that are taking state tests have been trained to really understand numbers and how numbers work. And I think we're starting to see those outcomes. The subgroups in, again, Crosby, the district, and the state in the 3 columns. And again, our subgroups show similar data, although math is slightly better than ELA. So this is the data that we have to look at when we begin to talk about school improvement. I did do a participation slide. I think this is over the past 4 years. And although we had that drop in the 2015 school year, we're coming back up, but we are not close to 95% participation. And for as long as we fall short of that participation rate, we will always be on a list. And hopefully we will see changes in that area, in the accountability area. So we know our data, we know where our problems are, and then we begin to look at how do we improve student achievement. And Crosby School is essentially looking at 3 primary ways. In the tenets related to curriculum and instruction, we are doing explicit direct instruction. This is our 3rd year. We started with our special educators. EBI is a book study that we did as a staff. And I have a slide that highlights the key points of EDI. Our PBIS implementation into advanced PBIS will address the social emotional issues for students, and then our parent and community partnerships. And a lot of my presentation tonight is about Tenet 6, because we kind of decided to think out of the box and reach out to our community rather than expecting our community to come to us. So EDI, just very quickly, the things that I'm looking for when I go into a classroom, the things that I need for my teachers to be mindful of when they teach. The first is our kids need to know what they're supposed to learn. The objectives need to be stated and written and repeated. Whether a group starts with a whole group instruction and breaks down into a small group, those learning objectives must be stated and repeated. If our kids don't know what they're supposed to learn, they're going to be confused for the entire lesson. We teach first. We don't expect our kids to know. We teach first. And then we model the tasks. We show them what we need for them to do. We check for understanding. If we bypass the check for understanding, then we really don't know if the kids have learned what it is that we set out to do. We call on and respond to all students. The child with their hand raised is easy to call on and probably going to have the right answer, but the child without their hand raised is the one that we really want to hear from. Do they know? Can we confirm that they know? Can we clarify what they've learned or clear it up if there's a misunderstanding, and do we need to reteach? And all of this starts with teaching to guided practice to independent practice. And I am pleased to say that largely the Crosby staff has embraced this concept. It's not new, and it is tried and true. And I think for anyone that is an educator and has been in the classroom, that you can see that those are essential components. There are a lot of other details of EDI, but you don't have time to hear that tonight. This is our Crosby Superstar trophy. This trophy was in my attic. My daughter earned this trophy, and I said to her, it's in my attic, so each month we award a classroom the trophy. They have the Superstar Trophy. They earn the trophy for earning recognition for respectful, responsible, readiness, and random acts of kindness. And they're just little coupons that they get from bus drivers and monitors and teachers, anyone in the building that identifies. The room that has the most gets the Superstar. They get to be the Superstar classroom. Each week, we put the coupons into a box and we draw the coupons so that we have a Crosby Student of the Week. We have a bulletin board display. They get to choose the things they'd like to do, whether it be read the announcements or have lunch with a particular staff member, run some errands. So we are on our, we've got 4, our new one starts this coming week. But our big, what I'm really proud of is when we were looking at school improvement, we looked in Tenet 6, how do we engage parents to become partners? And more importantly, how do we connect parents to our community? I've been in this business for a long time, and we in schools always kind of thought we have all the answers. We have the answers. We can figure it out. Well, we've reached a point now where we don't have all the answers, and we need to work with our community to take care of our children. So we extended 20-some invitations to local agencies, and we set up an expo during back to school night. This is just one of our guests. I mean, I have several slides. I was so pleased with some of the responses that we got from the community, and just being grateful for us to be willing to invite them in. The NYCA, the New York Conservatory for the Arts, had a whole list of parents who signed up for and were interested in the activities that NYCA performs. We had a chance to share our Crosby PBIS work. My social worker and school psychologist had a board and a display. We invited Ulster County Mental Health, and SPOA is a single point of access for families who have children and adults that have serious emotional problems, and they need to get into the system. And that process can actually start with our school staff. Our PTO was there. They have some spirit attire in the background if anyone's interested. Ulster Police were there to have safety seats and Save Child cards. And Chief Berardi and our SRO Killian, I believe, is at Miller. And he's actually been called to Crosby a few times to help us out with, we had a few runners this year. The YMCA at Kingston and Ulster County was there. We are doing a wraparound program with the Y this year, so daycare before school and after school until 6 o'clock. Our OT and PT services, what was really nice is I could finally intermix the services that we offer in the school with the services that are offered from the outside. Hudson Valley Youth Corral, Sunshine Orthodontics, they had toothbrushes and chapstick, and our Ulster County Girl Scouts, our reading support. And the comments I thought were really important. This was the best way to share information with parents. We wish this was happening in all of the schools. I had a chance to ask questions about OT and PT that I would not have thought to ask the teacher. We rarely meet the special area teachers at back to school night. It was nice to speak with them. And just wanted to thank you again for a very successful evening. Yesterday, one of our kindergartners proudly told me that she got a patch from the library. That's the Town of Ulster Library. I hope there will be many more visitors. And one of the presenters said to me as she was leaving, I've been to many expos, this was nicely done. So I was very proud with that successful evening. RCAL was with us that night. Our own PE department, Town of Ulster Library, Speech Services, and our Boy Scouts, we just didn't get pictures. I saved my Crosby art educator for last because this portion of the presentation was already covered on the website, but the art teacher at Crosby, and she's also at Chambers, in the spring agreed to work with the county on the Stockade and the Hudson River. So she had her third, I believe it was third graders last year, the fourth graders this year, do their drawings of the ships. They were presented at the Person House this past weekend for the burning of Kingston. Mike Searcy, and we have to give a lot of credit to Mike because he was the outside coordinator for this event. These little stone houses were made with the fingerprints, the thumbprints of our fourth graders. And the comment that came back, I want to let you know how incredibly popular exhibits were at the Person House today. So many students and their parents and grandparents were there, taking photos, and we're so proud of their school. So, and that is really what we as a school should be doing in our own community. My last comment, this slide was actually taken from a presentation by my teachers who presented at RCAL. This was part of their presentation. Patricia Viscaris and Kathy Owitz. Ms. Viscaris is a special educator. Mrs. Owitz is kindergarten, and they presented at RCAL on homework. It was well attended and well received, and RCAL is one of those organizations, when we have a special ed meeting, the advocate shows up from RCAL to help the parent through the process. So we have identified that we need to be partners with RCAL so that when we're coming to when we're meeting on a child, we are working together to make sure that they're getting the services they need. And the more that we can do with them, I think we can achieve that goal. We have a few additional partnership events planned. In November, we're doing a Math Movement Assembly and Parent Night, and that all of you are welcome to attend. We will be repeating our Parent Academy in February, and we will have our literacy celebration in May. So I think we are off to a really good start. We believe that we will have excellence in everything that we do at Crosby School. Thank you for your time. I hope there are any questions.
Questions? Mrs. Anderson?
It's really just a comment that I so appreciate all the time and effort that went into the expo. It sounds like it was a really collaborative effort and a lot of thought. And I also like the idea of going out into the community more, so thank you for bringing that to us.
Yeah, we're trying. I don't know what to do.
I would like to echo what Dr.
Mrs. Jordan?
I was thinking along the same lines. I think it's wonderful that you've reached out to the partners in the community and made them visible in the school, because so often we seem like we're eyeing them to ourselves. And I also want to say that Nora and I were there with Mr. Clapper and touring with BBL, and as Nora said, they had the shiniest floors. The staff has worked so hard and take so much pride. You know, some of our schools are aging, but I have to say that there is a warmth in those buildings anyway, and a sense of pride, and I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Next superintendent's report, we have our Second Century Project with KSQ and BBL, and they're here today. Carly and Alex are here. And Mr. Clark, of course.
So Robin and Mike left this to us, so we're gonna wing it a little bit. We have a pre-construction design progress updates. The main renovation package, second phase, I'm not gonna go through the list, but we are finishing up the package this week. Within the next 2 weeks, BBL is putting together the front end of the specs, finalizing the coordination. It's gonna go to a CD under the new SD guidelines and forms that we're working with BOCES for review. So we are hopeful that the review process will go quicker. That's the intent of the change. I'm not sure if the rest of the ongoing projects, team pre-construction design task.
What is FFE costs?
The FFE is furniture and furnishings in the school. You walk through the school wings, you saw that all of the new wings have new furniture that's been part of the ongoing package. As each wing was finished, we have packages of furniture coming in for each wing. Where the next phase is Salzman is going to be finished. There's furniture line to come in December, right? So that's on the line to come out. I think that's it for the pre-construction for now.
For anyone that doesn't already know me, I'm Carly Evniski from BBL Construction. I'm going to give you a quick construction progress update for all the projects at the Kingston High School. Starting with the field house, the curtain divider was delivered and installed on October 9th. This is a picture of it right here. The gym teachers are using it now and utilizing it to split the gym in half for gym classes. We also have the permanent railing installation ongoing. This started last weekend on the west side of the building at the new entrance going into the pool lobby. We also have railings starting on the east side of the building, taking down the temporary ones and putting the new ones in place. On September 21st, I believe it was, we had the contractors come in and they took out some of the temporary items that were in the locker rooms for the pool. They put in the permanent lockers, all of the big mirrors and the countertops in both the girls and the boys side. We also have the starter block delivery coming in November 1st. There's 6 of those. They will be taking out the existing ones and putting in the new ones, not to interrupt swim season. We also have the installation of the permanent wood doors ongoing. This is a picture of the pool lobby. You can see the new tile and the new wood doors. We did have temporary ones in place, but they have been removed and the permanent ones have now been installed. The roof abatement on the bridge connecting the main building and the field house has also been completed. This is a picture of the finished gym flooring. It's very nice. Also, one of the basketball hoops, these were set up last month and they were slid off to the side so they're not in the way of the gym classes. Moving on to the main mechanical package, the abatement portion of this has been completed, which includes some of the ACM pipe insulation removal and some of the tile and mastic removals on the floor. Also, the transite panels and the painted ductwork have been removed. A few weeks ago, we did contain a portion of the auditorium attic. This work has been complete and this has been turned back over to the district to use in the morning or however they need to use it. For the main mechanical portion, this project is wrapping up with the mechanical equipment completing, as well as the new outside air louvers. The closeout process is underway to start to get these contractors wrapped up and get all of their contracts closed out and 100% paid. This is a picture of the auditorium containment. As you can kind of see on the roof, on the ceiling, there are some white patches which have now been covered and are no longer any danger. Some photos of the new boilers and the new air separator in the boiler room in the high school. And some pictures of the cabinet unit heaters that were installed throughout the main building and one of the new roof fans. Moving on to the Salzman Academic Corps, as Dr. Catalina was saying, we had the ribbon cutting on October 5th, which had a great turnout. Lots of people from the community were attending, and it was great feedback from everybody. I personally took a few people for a walkthrough, and it was great to hear their comments and answer any of the questions that they had personally. We took advantage of school being out on October 9th, and contractors were able to get into the wing to just wrap up some small punch list items. Today, we also have the Alpo partitions being installed or delivered and starting installation in the technology rooms. These will separate the technology rooms into 2 smaller maker spaces. There's 3 of these areas. Moving on to the Salzman Core, we are still working in the new cafeteria with framing and sheathing ongoing, as well as mechanical, fire protection, electrical, and plumbing roughing in. It's starting to wrap up, and once all of that is signed off, we can begin to close up the walls. Tomorrow, we have some of the epoxy work beginning in the servery area. This will take roughly 5 days, and then curing time is needed for the floor to harden, and all of the equipment will be delivered in early November. The framing, sheathing, and all of the rough-ins also are continuing on the 2nd floor in the library and in some of the new classroom spaces. Rock removal has been completed in the Salzman elevator pit. And then the rooftop units that service the new cafeteria are going to be started up and tested on October 24th, next Tuesday. Our next milestone date is going to be the turnover of the new cafeteria in January of 2018. During the holiday break, staff will begin to move all of their items and themselves over into the new space. This is a photo from the ribbon cutting. It's kind of windy that day. This is where the new elevator in the south addition of Salzman will be going. The other day we removed the staircase that you can see. Contractors were using that as egress into the building, but we have adjusted some of our egress ways a little bit. The chilled beam, this is in one of the new science classrooms on the 2nd floor of the building. In the cafeteria, nearly all of these soffits are framed, and the ceilings are starting to go up in this area. In the library, framing is ongoing as well, and ductwork is starting to go up. Starting to get rid of some of the piles. Moving on to MJM abatement and demolition. The abatement has been completed, and a few weeks ago, the bridge connecting the Salzman building and MJM was removed. As you can see in this picture, it's a clear shot between the east and the west addition. Right now, our demo contractor is working on removing the south elevation of the building, working their way north. By mid-November, this building will be completely down to the ground. They'll be clearing the building from north to south, making a little more time for the new foundations to be put in for the new Salzman addition. Some of the salvage materials have been turned over to the district, such as the cupola that was turned over today, and some of the windows that will be used in the new Salzman Park. This is a picture of the MJM gymnasium demolition from the roof of the west addition. It has moved fairly quickly. This was taken last week, and a lot more of the building is down between then and now. Some more photos of the gym demolition. Does anyone have any questions?
I'm just curious what the chilled beam is used for. So it's Chiltern is part of the HVA system. So the rooftop unit takes care of the overall air in the building, and every room has its own control of it. It has hot water and cold water to it to keep each room at a separate temperature from the next. And it's the advantage is the fan is on the roof instead of in a univent heater in your classroom. So it's a very quiet system and it's a very efficient system. And there's very little mechanical pieces to it. So all the mechanical pieces are on fix them. And this is just it looks like a ceiling top with vents in it.
So the question is about the auditorium, and it's always been so hot, especially at the stage.
Right.
So with the attic now is cleaned up, how will be able to do some more ventilation, more air conditioning?
Not in this phase, that's for phase 2.
Okay.
So one of the reasons that, we had talked before about bringing the phase 2 to SED over the summer, and two things had happened. Number one, the SED regulations changed on how we could submit. We used to be able to submit probably 85% drawings, almost done, and we had blank pages and we could switch them out as we were waiting for the period, because it's an 6 to 8 month period. They told us that they can't do that. They're going to admit, as soon as the project is delivered, they're going to look through it and make sure it's complete. And then they put it on the table for 6 to 8 months and then they look at it. so that was one piece. And the second piece is that we added some scope to the project. So the air conditioning for the auditorium was added. There was some sprinkler work added. And so those things we had to get completely vetted out and added to the project. We also had a couple stakeholder meetings with the administration at the high school. They had a few comments and wanted some things added, and we incorporated that into the project also. So that's why we were a little bit behind schedule of submission, but we're confident that we're going to keep our schedule. One of the other things I wanted to bring up, and I want to bring it up at a public forum. I've been at the demolition site with a couple of different contractors. We have some folks that want some memorabilia, and it is a construction site, it is a demolition site. Please don't come through the fence.
Is it for sale?
What's that?
Is it for sale?
Yeah.
I will say though, a few staff members approached me while I was there, and I brought bricks to the fence for them. They want a brick or two. So what we did today is I asked the contractor to get a pile of bricks and put them outside and take a few if you want. Please stay outside the fence. We don't need anybody hurt in there. And it is a demolition in process. Okay. So we'll I think tomorrow or the next day there's going to be quite a few bricks outside the fence, and people can go pick up a brick and bring them home. And I can't believe the amount of people who have just come up either to Sophie Penn parking lot or to the Sophie Penn parking lot, their own parking lot, and they just sit there and they eat their lunch and they watch this thing go down. And how many memories, I don't know any, I know a few people from Kingston, but they're telling me their whole life story. 4 generations of going to MJM school, and it is. It's an emotional thing. We're moving forward. We know that, and we had some of the past has to go to move forward in the future. That's the way it goes.
Mr. Schultz?
Do you have any knowledge of what type of recycling is the contractor will do with the building?
So all the bluestone steps were taken by a contractor to be reused in other projects. They have recovered some of the beams in the attic. It's always a problem with cost, and it's not cheap to demolish building. So they weigh recycling against actually disposal. And most of it, like the brick is a high clay brick, it seems like. The machines are running over and it's turning to powder, so they can't use it for fill anywhere. They had talked about grinding it and using it for fill in the building. It's not appropriate. So most of the bricks that are getting crushed are going into the dumpster. There's not a lot left in the building that can be recycled. All the metal, obviously, you can see they're separating that out, so all the metal's going. It's a brick building with plaster. There's just the frame of it. There's not a lot of it that can be recycled.
Any more questions? Mrs. Jordan?
First of all, I just want to commend everybody, because when we walked through the new wings, it was just beautiful. And I think the center hall where you've jerry-rigged the old doors, I think there's something nice about that. I wouldn't mind checking them, because it's like interesting. But I was wondering if you have had any feedback from the people who are inhabiting those new classrooms to learn any lessons for as we move forward in the other stages, where there, for instance, I know we're ordering more furniture. Have we asked people, is the furniture, you know, is it what you expected? Is it working for people before we then order more?
Right. So in general, I would say that the teachers are happy with their spaces. There's been some requests for furniture, but typically it's been in the office spaces, not in the classroom spaces. I think we had several stakeholder meetings, and we took all their input. We actually, just before we ordered the furniture, we put samples of the furniture out so teachers could make comments and administrators could make comments. We had a consensus that these were the desks that they wanted to use because they're very versatile. Right. You can set them up in several different ways because of their shape. And so we put a lot of casework in for projects and for books and whatnot. And quite frankly, most of the complaints that we're hearing is either there's like one of the teachers, one of the lights in her room kept going on and off. So it was, it was repaired. Hot rooms, cold rooms, but in general, they're very happy with the space and what we've done. So, and what I find very nice is that they're starting to personalize it. It was Stark. It was a beautiful, clean building, and now there's projects going on the wall from the students. They have educational materials hanging on the wall, and it's starting to look more like a school. Before it was a building with a lot of classrooms. Now it's looking like a school.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you very much.
And I did go through today, and the pictures Carla showed are a few days old. There's much more of MJM gone than I have some pictures. I'll send them to the board. About half of the building is down at this point. It's interesting to see. And I also went through the new cafeteria, which seems to me like it's really taking shape. You can see the way it's that it's a cafeteria. So I'm looking forward to that moving on, and I think the students are too. For that new space.
Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes the superintendent's report tonight.
Thank you very much. Which brings us to the consent agenda. Are there any resolutions that trustees would like to move from the consent agenda? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor of the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Yes, please.
I just wanted to comment very quickly. As you all know, we restructured part of our human resources in our payroll department, and we hired we created and hired a new payroll clerk, and he is here today, and his name is Ronald Higgins. So I'd like to introduce Ronald Higgins, our new payroll clerk. Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Higgins.
Thank you very much.
Ms. Guido, would you read the donations?
We have D12, whereas the Kiwanis Club of Kingston wishes to donate an attached list of books to Edson Elementary School. I scanned, looking at about 40 to 50 books that are being donated to Edson Kiwanis Club. We have D13, whereas George Washington Elementary School is the recipient of a generous grant award from the Community Foundation of the Hudson Valley Field Trip Fund in the amount of $2,000. And we have D14, whereas E.R. Crosby Elementary School is the recipient of a generous grant award from the Benevity Community Impact Fund in the amount of $1,000. We have D15, whereas Chambers Elementary School is a recipient of a generous donation from the Connect Kids Field Trip Refund Grant in the amount of $640. And D16, whereas Edson Elementary School is a recipient of a generous donation from the Connect Kids Field Trip Refund Grant Program in the amount of $333. And last but not least, we have D17, whereas the MC Miller Craft Fair would like to donate a breakout box to Miller Middle School. What's a breakout box?
It's a really good question.
We didn't know what the chiller breakout box.
The show, it's next to Chiller Beans. I'm assuming it's like some sort of craft. And there's a lot of donations, so thank you to everybody.
Thank you very much. Which brings us now to Board of Education, and first up is Mrs. Collins with the Policy Committee report.
The Policy Committee met on Friday, October 6th, and we discussed 3 policies that are in our minutes and actually on the agenda for this evening. First up, Policy 6840, school meals. There was a simple NISBA recommended change regarding the point of sale system. We also discussed Policy 1530, smoking and other tobacco use on premises, because technology, if that's the correct word, and smoking is changing. We wanted to clarify e-cigarettes to electronic smoking devices. I guess with vaping and such, there's a lot more ways that people can use nicotine and tobacco. So those 2 policies, because the changes were not really substantive, we're moving those forth for adoption this evening. It's just really changes in wording. So I'd like to move Policy 6840 and Policy 1530 for adoption this evening.
Second. Any discussion?
And lastly, we have Policy 8410, the transportation policy, that we have on tonight's agenda for a first reading, because we changed that policy to reflect how we measure distances. And you can see what's been stricken there. The measurement to establish the transportation limitations is now done from the nearest property line of the home to a designated node, is the term that we came up with. Right, of the school to the most direct and shortest public road which could be used by students. So since that is a substantive change, we have that on tonight's agenda for a first reading. And our next meeting is Friday, 11/3. Sorry.
Okay, we need to vote on the first two, moved and seconded.
Okay,
So,
okay.
all those in favor of 6840 and 1530, which were moved together? Please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, thank you. And we'll have the second reading on the next agenda for the transportation policy changes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next report is Teaching and Learning Committee, and Dr. Chapova will be reporting on that.
Okay, we met on September 28th. It was a productive meeting, as always. We talked about the coaching model. This has been kind of evolving as we began our coaching model several years ago. It's really cross-grade for elementary schools, with coaches kind of rotating through the schools. We discussed other potential models. I think that this will be an ongoing conversation over the course of the year, what kind of coaching is best for our district. We talked about the middle school schedule. For this year, we have made sure that each day starts with a core class and then ends with a core class, and that teachers have common planning time. And then there will be continued discussion among teachers and administrative staff throughout the year about the middle school schedule, and making sure it's what we want and what we need. We talked about the switch from reading recovery to a new early literacy or intervention literacy model that we moved to this year. We had hoped that moving from reading recovery would allow us to serve a lot more students, and we were able to serve an additional 60 students with the new model. That's not as many as we had hoped. This kind of reflection, this is really a scheduling issue that needs to be worked out and refined, and that's going to be a focus for the coming year. We talked a little bit about assessment data and what the board would like to see. We got an update on CALC. And then finally, there were changes made to the fifth and sixth grade report card that made it much clearer, and it looks great, I think. We'll see it in action in a few weeks. So we had to make some changes to our meeting dates. So our next meeting date is in November, I think, but I don't have it listed here. Is that right? No, you have it?
I don't, but it is on our website.
Okay, so it's on our website, but then we did make a bunch of changes to meetings in 2018. So we'll be meeting on February 22nd, we'll be meeting on April 26th, and we'll be meeting on July 12th. And all of those are on the website. Okay, anything else that anybody would want to add?
November 16th.
November 16th? Thank you, November 16th. Anything else for the committee?
Just a comment, quick comment, just to remind the board that one of the goals, my goals from the board are to review and present to the board regarding the coaching model. And while conspiracy theorists could think one thing, that is, we're reviewing the program to see how it's working, not to eliminate it.
Any questions? Thank you very much. Next up, and I guess I'm going to do a brief report. And if someone else has reported on sessions, you don't need to unless you have something they haven't covered. The NISBA conference report. 7 of our trustees attended the NISBA conference in Lake Placid last week, along with our board clerk and superintendent, and we have a lot to share. So, begin, just go on.
I didn't go because my husband's, but I will report my husband's.
So, okay.
I got a 98 on the midterm, because I didn't know.
Now I took her. So now we know who did it.
Those are our reports.
This is not.
I did go. I went to the communications workshop, managing community opposition, social media activism, and fake news. And it was excellent. It was a whole day thing. And building stronger relationships. I'm sure other people, I think somebody else went to that also. The emotionally intelligent board, engage with parents and families, 187 words. There were so many of them, and there's so many to choose from, but they were excellent.
Thank you. Mrs. Collins.
I did have the opportunity to attend as well. I probably went to a couple, the same as my colleagues. So just quickly state, there were a couple I thought were particularly of value. I know Mr. Shaughnessy and I were a few of them together. One of them was a session on supporting students experiencing poverty and homelessness. You know, we've, as a district, have undertaken that initiative. We had the book that everybody had read together. And just some really good ideas. These were offered by teachers who are in the field and administrators who are doing this work, talking about things that I didn't know, legal things in the McKinley-Vento Act about stable access to education. And I have all of these notes because that's what we do. But that was a particularly good one. Also, I went to one on LGBTQ legal consideration, because that's come up in policy. And the fact that sometimes when we go to these sessions, it's also reassuring to know that we're doing what we should be doing. The fact that, you know, DASA covers a lot of this legislation already, the anti-discrimination legislation. Of course, I went to policy hot topics, and ironically, almost every hot topic that NISBA says is a hot topic is one that we've dealt with because we're Kingston, and, you know, we're leaders in that. Supporting students experiencing poverty and homelessness, as I said. Addressing trauma was another one that I went to, so students can succeed, because many times as parents, as teachers, as board members, you know, we know kids come to school with a lot on their plate, and, you know, if they don't have their homework or they can't do what they're supposed to do, it's because something is happening. So I'm thankful for the opportunity, and also just quickly, it's nice to be together with our colleagues outside of the boardroom where we can also discuss issues. And that's, I think, a real benefit of going to this conference.
I'll go I don't want to. We tend to get wordy and.
So I was also at the meeting. I went to a whole bunch of different sessions. I went to one on a district that was had developed a pre-K program for itself, individualized learning program, which was not what it's going to be about. I went to a session on ESSA, which was pretty interesting, on our obligations under ESSA, which are also pretty extensive. I went to a session on restorative justice, and I went because I feel that I'm very proud of the movement that we've made on restorative justice and integrating it into our discipline policy. I feel that we need to do some more front-end work on restorative justice and making it part of the culture in our district. And I wanted to hear about that, and I did, actually. So this was a district, and it was a special act district, so it's actually kind of a special case, so it's not completely a comparative, but they talked a lot about everything has a tier, right? So their tier 1 of restorative justice, which is about how they act in the classroom and how they treat kids and the communities that they build in their classrooms, and I thought that was interesting and useful. And then the best session that I went to was about a 2-year kindergarten program that's in Middletown. And they talked about how they have at their kindergarten screening, they identify kids who they think will or may benefit from 2 years of kindergarten instead of just 1. And then they bring those kids back for a second screening, and they do a whole bunch of other kinds of screenings. And then they will work with parents, and they have kids that either go into a 1-year kindergarten or a 2-year program from the outset. And they talk about what that program looks like and the community outreach that they had to do to prep their communities for the potential of kids having 2 years of kindergarten. And it was great, and that was really a very productive session. So I think it was overall busy and productive 3 days.
Mr. Shaughnessy.
I went to 2-year kindergarten as well. It was interesting. It's mandatory. The first year there was some resistance. I think it's in the 3rd year now, and there's very little resistance. I think the assistant superintendent for instruction said we had 1 phone call about it, this year. So I concentrated on the health, safety, and school climate sessions, mental health, LGBTQ rights, addressing trauma, substance abuse, paving the way for school-based mental health initiatives, and the restorative justice. I also went to one on robotics at the elementary level, a school district in Orange County, Chester Unified School District. Is Lego robotic. They have a K1, 2, 3, and 3, 4 offerings, and every class gets at least 4 days per year, where the students spend the entire day learning to program these age-appropriate robots. One thing I wanted to say, that I mean, this could be an important comment, that since I did say that I concentrated on the health, safety, and school climate, I'm also on the board of directors of the Mental Health Association in Ulster County, and we've got in our board package for our next meeting, Ellen Pendergast, who is the Chief Executive Officer, reported that she's been appointed to the New York State Mental Health Advisory Council, which is a initiative of the State Mental Health, the Mental Health Association in New York State and the New York State Education Department have combined, and they had their first meeting on September 28th, and she informed us that the executive director of the statewide Association of School Administrators stated that the mental health needs of students is the #1 concern of her constituents. And so I thought that was an important event to acknowledge. I mean, it's there's a lot of, I mean, I think that Kingston School District is one of the districts leading the way in that initiative. But in one of the keynotes on Friday morning, the room was filled. And I believe, Dr. Catalino, I heard you couldn't get in, I locked out. So there is a lot of awareness that the social emotional needs of our students need to be addressed in order to accomplish, in order to allow our students to achieve academic success and life success.
Thank you. Mr. Michael?
Yes. Attending the conference was such a great experience and also allowing me to learn more about the aspect of teaching and learning, but also about the mental health of the kids, today, I had also attended the law conference, which was a whole day seminar, listening to about 25 lawyers for the whole day, talking about school law. But as I said, I was more interested in mental health in our schools today. And I attended 2 sessions on mental health from a clinical psychologist. And what she was, I heard a astonishing report about the children today with mental health issues. And he said about 17 million children today struggle with mental health or learning disorders during childhood and adolescence. And that amounts to 1 every 5 kids who has a mental disorder or learning disorder, which translates in a class is like 4 or 5 kids in the class, they have some mental issues. So it's very important to recognize, those kids and be able to give some treatment. And by doing so, we can prevent any academic failure from the kids, any suspensions, expulsions, dropouts, which always affects our bottom line, which is graduation rate. Another important thing was about the childhood suicide. It's the 3rd leading cause of death in the United States, 14-year-olds to 20-year-olds. So as I said, we have to be able to offer our kids the services they need in order for us to succeed as a district and as a community. And just like the last comment, Mr. Schoen has said several times, today's kids today, they need more common care than common home.
Okay, you've done a wonderful job. I'd just like to go back to the law conference for a minute. There were 4 of us who attended the law conference. Reverend Childs was among them, and he's not here tonight, unfortunately. You touched on it a little bit, but there was a lot of discussion about undocumented students and what their rights are. We have all the same civil rights that any other student has. We talked about possibly it would be a good move for the district to spell out what response should be on the part of staff should ICE agents come to a school where they weren't. And as we were at the conference, new guidance came down from the state, specifically targeted for undocumented students coming in from Puerto Rico. They're going to get an influx, they're anticipating an influx into New York State. Probably much of it in New York City, but throughout the state. And so there's initial guidance for that. There was a great deal of talk about equity of access to programs, and they went through the year in review with all the law cases that have come up. So it's edifying and a very, very long day, but in addition to that, I also attended workshops on open meetings law and the board members' right to free speech, and the use of email as a communication tool, email and texting as a communication tool. So a lot of fire for thought, definitely. Yes?
The Middletown School Assistant Superintendent said they're expecting an influx of Puerto Rican students perhaps, but they won't be undocumented because Puerto Ricans are American citizens.
Anybody else?
Just quickly, not that this is kind of attached to what you're talking about. I know Dr. Chikobos went to the ESSA, and I was in that workshop as well. Just to give a compliment to the State Education Department and the Commissioner who spoke, they've been communicating very well recently and communicating with the field very well, and they have sent, they have a new weekly thing they sent us out that's clear, concise, tells us what's going on and what we need to know and things we need to act on. And actually it says, certain things are for your information, certain things are for action. They tell you right there in red what they need us to do. But one of the things that the newest things they just came out with was just really not interesting, but really easy to read infographics on ESSA. And I attached, they have it for parents, they have it for school board members, and they have them for school educators. And it's on their website. I did download the board member one and put it in the library for you to look at. It takes the 212 pages of ESSA and puts it on 2 pages and gives you really a good idea of what our responsibilities are as a school district and what ESSA is all about. So I was impressed with that, and I was seeing that you were talking about that conference. I just wanted you to know that was in your library.
Did you add it into the library?
Yeah, I sent it to Camille.
Where is it?
I'm sorry, Camille will add it in the library tomorrow. I sent it to Camille this afternoon.
Sorry. Okay. But yeah, even her discussion of it was very, very clear.
That's what we are always quick to point out the negative and to point out the positive. The state has done a much better job of communicating with us, and yes, I think the commissioner communicated well in her speech as well.
All right, good. Nothing else to add about the conference. Brings us to old business. Is there any old business any trustee would like to raise at this time? Ms. Guido?
I was just wondering about an update on the status of the special education analysis and report.
That's a very good question also, Ms. Guido. We have, actually, Mr. Birch and I talked about that just before the meeting, and we will have it by the end of next week, I believe is what Mr. McGuire told us.
The executive report?
Yeah,
Or the public?
the executive report.
And then that will be made public?
Then we'll review it, and actually, we'll review it and look at it first, make sure we think that there's not anything in data missing or anything like that, but then we'll make it public, yes.
When is the, I'm sorry. The review on George Washington School, I guess we'll have.
That's due on December 1st.
Right.
December 1st.
We'll be presenting on December 1st.
Okay. Any other old business?
And that, the actual reviewers are going to present the report to us, or you're going to present the report to us?
We can do it either way, actually.
I look forward to hearing whoever reports.
Any other old business? All right, moving on to new business. Is there any new business any trustee would like to raise right now? Yes.
I guess we had a coffee and conversation that several of us attended, but some of us were just their citizens because we couldn't all be there. But it was hosted by Temple Emmanuel on Albany Avenue, and we had several parents who came from George Washington School with similar comments, but they were, I think it was helpful, and we talked about coffee and conversations are helpful because we can have a conversation, unlike public comment, when people feel that we're not responding to them, because we're not allowed to respond to them. So it was, I think, a more satisfying get-together in that people understood what we were trying to accomplish, and even though there weren't a lot of people there, I thought it was a very nice gathering.
Just, I think that it just solidifies, we're making more of an effort to get out into the community, you know, going to the farmer's market. Rabbi Yael was very welcoming, we had a point of praise, so I do think that we're trying to give the community more of those opportunities, as Mr. Jordan said, to have a conversation, so, yes, come, see us. There were 5 of us and about the same number of people there, but,
One of you had to be just a
yeah,
normal.
I was just, right, but, you know, it was, I just think it's a great thing to do, and it's nice to be welcomed by the community, and I hope people take advantage of those.
I hope they do.
The next opportunity will be on Saturday, November 4th at 9:30 here at 12th Street.
So I have a,
Yes.
are we in new business?
Yeah.
We are, yes.
So I had a thought at the conference. I really enjoyed it. I learned a lot. And you know, our board meetings have been adjourned early in the evening. And my thought was that I wouldn't mind staying some nights, some evenings, a half an hour or 45 minutes, and to have some sort of a professional development presentation for board members, and it could even be done with videos on topics that the board would be interested in, And I also think it's an opportunity for, it will be an opportunity for the public, because I have a feeling that a lot of the public view the live stream or the the YouTube channel. And so a lot of these topics, put on social emotional learning, mental health initiatives, that's important for the community to be aware of too. And so this would be an opportunity to not only to educate ourselves, but to educate our parents and whomever else in the community is watching the board meeting. So I would just like to present that as something to consider.
I think it would be a wonderful idea as long as it's not added on to like a 10:30.
Well, no, but we're going to be out here in 5 minutes, right?
So I think if we have something in the works that we can just go into.
Well, an alternative, we could go back to a workshop meeting, might, the opposite of a business meeting.
But we see business every.
We do. So, I don't know, it's something to. Any other new business? Board member announcements. Board member announcements? Anyone?
Do you have a comment?
Board member announcements?
So just sharing.
So you don't want to announce it? No. Okay. All right. That brings us to the second opportunity for public participation. If there's anyone who would like to address the board at this point, please approach the podium, identify yourself, speak directly to the microphone. You have 2 minutes. Our board clerk will let you know when you're approaching your 2 minutes. So, is there anyone who would like to address the board at this point? Anybody? Hearing no takers, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Aye.
You have to give him 7 cough drops.